Hi, I'm Sarah Portee, and this is my presentation on race and ethnicity. Ethnicity. The U.S. is an ethnically and racially diverse nation comprised of nearly 300 ethnic groups whose members can identify the national origins of their ancestors. Some describe ethnic groups as being one's national origin, religion, and race. Many citizens identify themselves as American, not acknowledging the national origins of their ancestors as part of their history. A common bond with an ethnic group is developed through family members, friends, and neighbors with whom characteristics of living are shared. Ignomy is a marriage within the group. When you develop a healthy and secure ethnic identity, it helps in developing a sense of belonging and self-esteem. Ethnic awareness increases with age. Ethnic identity and acculturation. Ethnic identity can become a primary source of identification, and they feel no need to identify themselves differently. Many groups have integrated into different communities, and it creates a diverse community. As ethnic groups learn English and adopt the cultural behaviors of the dominant group, their ethnicity becomes less distinct, and they are less likely to be labeled as an ethnic by society, especially if they are white. Many immigrant groups have become acculturated over time by adopting the dominant group's cultural patterns. Summary of ethnicity. Many of the classrooms in the U.S. today are culturally and ethnically diverse. The school district that I teach in is currently very diverse. Students do notice that they are different, but their parents have integrated with society and they are not discriminated against. When students play on the playground, they are playing with students from all different cultures and races. As a teacher, I have to be considerate of all different ethnicities, and I know that race and ethnicity does matter, and I do have to address it, and I can't act like it does not matter. For example, I have a student that does not participate in the pledge or any holiday activities. Many students noticed that the student stays seated during the pledge, but we don't typically, because I teach first grade, I'm not going to tell them why that we don't. I just say that, he doesn't participate, and that's it. Let's see. This is my class at a recent field trip, and you can tell that we are all different cultures and races, but they are just excited to learn, and we are one big family in my classroom. Race. In the United States, people use race and ethnicity interchangeably. Race is a concept developed by physical anthropologists to describe physical characteristics of people. Race is used to track participation in groups of schools, colleges, and professional fields to determine the extent of discriminatory outcomes. A factor that affects population growth is birth rate. Racial identity is influenced by our family and by others who share our identity. If a group is seen as aggressive and violent, the reaction of the second group may be fear and as a protective action. Continued racial identity of groups evolves with education and life experiences, but may be suppressed at any stage before full development. And then this is the Black Identity Development Model describes 5 stages in the racial development of African Americans. In the first stage, black children become aware of physical and cultural differences between them and others, but generally do not feel afraid or hostile towards members of other groups. In the second stage, acceptance, children attempt to accept and conform to the standards and values of the dominant society. In the third stage, resistance, young children begin to become acutely aware of racism and its impact on their lives and how it affects them. In the fourth stage, redefinition, blacks develop a strong desire to identify with their racial group and actively learn about African American history and culture. The fifth stage of development is internalization, in which individuals become secure in their own race and are able to develop the relationships and feel secure in their own race. Whites and other racial groups also go through developmental stages as they develop their racial identity and abandon racism. The Jim Crow laws in the 1960s forced whites and blacks to use different public accommodations. And schools have been of importance for many years, even during the civil rights movement. At one time, children of color were not allowed to attend schools. Later, they were allowed to attend schools, but not with white children. Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954 was a Supreme Court decision that declared that separate but equal schooling was not equal. A first step in confronting racism in schools is to realize that racism does exist. Once teachers believe that discrimination exists in society and the school, then they are more likely to believe students of color when they report incidents of racism or discrimination. A school environment should help students learn to participate in the dominant society while maintaining connections to their distinct ethnicities. This is a picture of my classroom while we were making grilled cheeses. And you can tell that we are all different ethnicities and races, but we all come together as one. Acknowledging race and ethnicity in schools. Teachers usually do not confront issues of race in schools and classrooms because race is not supposed to matter. Race and ethnicity does matter to many students and their families, and they do have an impact on communications and interactions with teachers. Instead of pretending that race and ethnicity does not exist, teachers should acknowledge the differences and be aware of ways that they can influence learning. Equity does not mean sameness. Students can be treated differently as long as the treatment is fair and appropriate to accomplish the goals of learning. Knowing students' ethnic and cultural experiences is important in designing effective strategies to engage students in learning. And this is my bibliography, and I used our textbook. Thank you.